because of the constraint of the possibility of being shut down after 40 minutes, after which we have to realize that we have at our disposal now. So you're all welcome to this class. It's been quite a while, and thank God we are all alive and well to survive the COVID-19 pandemic. And I believe by God's grace, we shall all see ourselves through to the completion of this course and beyond it. So this afternoon, I'm going to just quickly review what we have done before. I might not go into details because of time constraints to have your notes based on the discussions we had, and then we will move on to the topic of the day. Right. When we started in 2019, 2020, we discussed the essence of facilities performance evaluation, and we talked about the background issues, the reasons why you must, as the facility manager, time to time, assess how you are doing in terms of your management strategy, in terms also of the performance of your facility from the perspective of users and from your own perspective based on the standards that exist for that class. Can I appeal that we please mute ourselves so that we can have minimum discussion? Please, for you, mute yourself, please. Your mic. Please mute your mic. Thank you very much. That you can hear from our discussion this afternoon. Okay. So here we go. We discussed the background issues, the importance of performance evaluation in facilities management. We discussed also the dangers that are there if you do not manage and you do not measure your performance at time. And then we also looked at the key elements of performance evaluation. One, that it is vital to facilities strategy so that you can ensure that you are contributing value to the organization that sets up the facility management process in the first place. And then we talked about the importance for monitoring expenses, for ensuring efficiency, effectiveness, and all those things. We talked about the various areas in which we need to measure facilities performance. We said you can measure performance for facility, and then you can measure the management of the facility. There are tools available doing such things. Some of the things we try to evaluate buildings include quality, adherence to standards, structural integrity, energy efficiency, maintainability, durability, functionality, usability, economics, security, flexibility, adaptability, imageability, as well as capacity to compete favorably with other facilities within the class. And then we talked about, of course, that is not to be boosted. Like I told you, I want to be as quick as I can. There are many other factors that we looked at. We may not have used exactly the same words, but we talked about ability, we talked about resilience and capacity to disaster. So we didn't go into much detail as far as that is concerned, and all those things regarding the security itself. User satisfaction is a critical aspect. Are they satisfied with the facility? Does it meet with the expectations as far as take availability, convenience of use, and all those things are concerned. There are some of the things. Then, as far as facilities management is concerned, we said that we need to measure performance against goals that are set as part of the strategy. We need to measure the service delivery, scope, resource management, quality of services provided, value contributed, and contribution, facilities management to the bottom line. All those things we mentioned as part of our introductory factor. Okay. We also looked at the FM performance objectives, which aim at evaluating financial goals, what extent facility as well as management achieving the financial goals of the organization. Then what about the processes? Are they appropriate? They are appropriate for the company, and are we sure that we minimize costs and that we make optimal gains? About somebody's mic is on and there's a lot of noise. Kindly mute all your speakers, please. Thank you. Mute your mics. If you want to minimize interference so that we can make the best of
Wow.
I'm surprised that some of us are not yet. Right? Thank you. So we're saying that performance evaluation aims to achieve financial goals, customer satisfaction, process excellence in process aspects of the organization, and then also to contribute positively for the development of new, let me just call this innovativeness within the organization. Okay? And as far as techniques are concerned, we have looked at the post-occupancy evaluation technique. I think we spent quite some time on that. Then we looked at self-work, which is the tool for measuring service quality. That's the one that is based on the gap theory, the gap between customer expectation and customer experience. And I remember mentioning to you that SAPCO has variants because it's not always possible to remember, for the customer to remember what they expected when they were coming into the facility. There have been new ideas as far as what is concerned to be able to measure performance of the facility as it is, without necessarily referring to the past. So you have self-help, which is service performance. You have other variants of that. For instance, in higher education, those who measure satisfaction with facilities in higher education have come up with a framework called HPAP, higher education and performance evaluation, and things like that. So self-work is a very good tool, enables you to evaluate the quality of services that are being received by the customers, and it's also done from the user's perspective. Just like fancy evaluation is from the user's perspective. Then we talked about balanced scorecard, which is a tool for assessing the performance of facilities management. And it's called balanced scorecard because it helps you to assess the performance on the basis of four principal areas: financials, customer-related issues, process-oriented issues, and then learning. The learning aspects have to do with research and development in the organization. I remember very well we also covered the excellence model, European Foundation quality management assessment model. Okay, I think we also covered usability. We're on that when the COVID-19 pandemic struck and we all had to go on lockdown. Now that has been very long and I hope you have brushed up your books, you have gone through them, at least to remind yourself of what we did that time. Well, today my intention is to talk to us about benchmarking. Benchmarking is one of those critical tools or processes that facilities managers should know enough about. Let's I can see a hand. Is there any reason why? Yes, I see your hand up. Why? You want to ask a question?
Yes, ma.
Sorry, I can't hear you. There's a lot of noise. Can we please mute our mics? Yes.
Okay, ma. I wanted to request if you could allow us to record this session, ma.
Well, no problem, because we want to listen to it all over again.
Yes, ma.
Objection.
So when you try to click the record, it says that the host gave us permission to record.
Permission granted.
Thank you, ma.
Okay. Thank you. So we move on, and I want to talk to us about benchmark. Principally, I will be covering the following issues. Number one, what is benchmarking? What are the characteristics of benchmarking? What's the purpose of benchmarking? And what are the benefits of benchmarking? Before we now come to the processes of getting benchmarking done. Now, there have been some arguments from some supporters and from those who are concerned with facilities management that benchmarking may not necessarily be regarded as a tool of performance evaluation. But I would say that that argument is a little bit misleading. The truth is that benchmarking enables you to carry out facilities management performance evaluation, not just within the organization, but particularly in relation to best practices within the class of activity you are involved. For instance, if you are into management of school facilities, you might want to know how you are doing. These are the best practices in schools facilities management. So you are evaluating your performance. These are the best practices. Are you measuring up to standard? Are you able to reflect what customers require? Are you able to meet up with the extent of advancement of progress that the other companies that are similarly involved have achieved? So benchmarking to me is essentially a very important tool, even in the area of performance evaluation. And I think we should look at it from that angle too. So, what is the definition of benchmarking? What are the characteristics of benchmarking? And what are the benefits of benchmarking? First, let me start with the definition. So that taking it in simple steps like that, we can be able to understand very well and assess ourselves. Maybe we're even already doing benchmarking to some extent or the other. And if we're not yet doing it, then it becomes easier for us to understand what it's all about and how we can get it. So here we go. What is the definition of benchmarking? Benchmarking can be described as a systematic and continuous way of discovering the best performance being achieved by competitors or organizations or other industry. What I mean is what do I call them, organizations in another class of activity. It may not necessarily be in schools facilities management, it may be in hospital management, in other areas of activity, in order that you might be able to identify your competitors, that's one thing, and to assess, how they are going about what they do, and evaluate your own practices vis-a-vis theirs, so that you will be able to identify the gap between you and best practice, and then do whatever is necessary to make sure that you measure up to standard. That's a long-winded definition, but let me read it out to you based on what I have written down here, so that you can jot it down or listen to it all over again if you so wish. I said it is a systematic and continuous way of discovering the best performance being achieved by competitors or organizations or even other industries in order to identify gaps and inadequacies that need to be addressed in your own company or in your own organization or practice. So you can benchmark from organizational perspective. That means if you are manning an arm or a department in the organization that is in charge of facilities management, or you can benchmark if you are running your own facilities management outfit. You can benchmark whatever your position is within the industry. Benchmarking is a powerful tool that will enable you to see where you stand vis-a-vis the best in the area of the engagement that you are in. Now, every parent usually is anxious to see that their child is doing well in school. And so when you get to school, the first thing you ask when they say, oh, results for your children's performance started, what is the position of my child? If your child came first, you feel happy, oh yes, this child has outrun others, he has outdone his classmates. But when your child is in the 30th position, 20-something position, the natural feeling is, oh, this child is not doing quite so well. And then you want to see how you can help that child get a lesson teacher, you then reduce their television time, the time they spend watching TV, push them by giving them, maybe incentives. Oh, if you do better next time, we're going to take you to Disneyland, and might also offer a stick in the sense that, oh, if you don't perform, then no more pocket money, no more watching TV. Actually, you look at your organization, you look at your processes, you check how far are you from the best practitioners, how far are you from the best facilities, and then what do you need to do in order to improve and meet their standard. I need to stress something, and that is that benchmarking is not something you do on a one-off basis. It's better done continuously, and that's why I mentioned that in the definition. Something you need to keep on doing. Why? Two major reasons. First is to keep abreast of innovations, improvements, new advancements in the operations in which you are in, and to track how your competitors are doing, so that you don't rest on your oars, so that you can also meet up with the competition and be able to move ahead. So one key word I would like to flag in this issue of benchmarking is competitiveness. Performance, yes, indeed, but also competitiveness. Because when you start looking at how you are doing vis-a-vis how others are doing, it's because you are interested in making sure you compete as well as you possibly can. Right, so now what are the purposes of benchmarking, and how do they translate into benefits? Let me quickly run through that. Sorry? Sorry there, somebody said something. Okay, I think I may still continue. Right. What are the purposes of benchmarking? Purposes of benchmarking identify industry best practice. It helps you to identify industry best. Number two, it helps you to evaluate performance. Your own performance, your list that the performance of your competitors, so that you have a good idea how you are doing it compared to all other within your class. You want to know whether looking at your financials, your cost profile is beyond what is the best in the industry. You want to look at the degree of customer satisfaction. Are customers more satisfied with other facilities than they are with your group? And there are so many other things that you may want to look at. I will soon give you a list of the kind of things you can benchmark when you are looking at your organization. Okay, so I've mentioned two so far. Number one is you want to identify industry best practice, very critical. Number two is you want to evaluate performance vis-a-vis your competitors. Number three is you want to ensure that you can use the information from those 2 points to improve your efficiency and your effectiveness in managing the facilities under you. Okay, so the information you gather from the knowledge of best practice and the information you gather, your evaluation of your performance vis-a-vis will help you to know how you need to improve your efficiency and your effectiveness in the area of facilities management. Another very critical purpose of benchmarking is to enable you to discover new opportunities. There might indeed be new opportunities in terms of techniques available that you were not, conversant with, but others are using them to advantage. They help you to identify what those techniques are. Secondly, it can help you also to be able to know new opportunities in terms of processes, in terms of, maybe new equipment. Others have gotten to know about using them. You are not yet using them. Once you get to know, you can then strategize to equip yourself accordingly and deploy those facilities, those implements to improve your work, and so on and so on. Another purpose is to ensure that you are able to motivate your staff, motivate your operational staff to do what is needful in order that there might be continuous improvement in your organization. And when you are able to motivate them like that, you set for them standards, you set for them goals based on best practice that you have gotten from your analysis of the best in the field. And then you're able to hold your staff accountable to make sure that they perform according to expectation. Okay, so these are a lot of the things that you can do as far as the purposes of benchmarking are concerned. Yet another thing is that it enables you to make continuous improvements in your contribution to the bottom line of your company. It enables you to justify expenses on facilities management even better when you're able to show that you are doing just as well as the best, or better still, you are doing even better than the best. Your facility is enjoying greater rating, higher rating than others, and maybe you have zero vacancy. Let's say your facility is the kind that has spaces to let, and you have tenants, you have the seats, and you are able to show that your facility is 100% occupied and you have no turnout of occupants. People are not leaving because they're enjoying the benefits of your hard work. They're enjoying the fact that you are leading the pack, so to speak, and they speak well of what you're doing and you're getting good referrals. It will motivate your management to support your facility management department better than you may have to do. When you come up with your budget and you have things argue for, oh, we need this new equipment. It will cost us some 5 million and this and that. But when they see that, you are leading in your class and your facility is performing quite well, or it is contributing excellently well to the success of the organization, definitely there will be less resistance to what you are bringing forward than would have been the case otherwise. Another thing it helps you to do is to improve the quality of your products and services in the industry. So continuously you are improving your services, continuously you are improving your products, and definitely that will be a big plus for you as well. You can therefore understand why I said benchmarking is something that we need to get very familiar with, something that we need to deploy as often and as best as we can. Okay, so it's a continuous process. I've said that before, it bears repeating, it bears stressing, because if you don't continue and you think you have arrived, chances are others who are also benchmarking will soon surpass you and you soon begin to be relegated. So the business world is all about competition, and competition has its benefits. It has a way of improving services, of ensuring that customers get a better deal than would have been the case otherwise. So I want us to take note of all these things and move on accordingly. So let us look at the history of benchmarking. History of benchmarking. In brief, because we don't have much time at our disposal, I'm going to rely on you to go and beef up our discussion by your own research on the subject matter. After all, if you want to be a master of the subject, you have to be able to use your skills to, get into as many avenues to acquire information about it as possible. Okay, so benchmarking history is very important. I want to say that benchmarking within the field of facilities management, benchmarking is deployable across many fields. In the business world, benchmarking is well. In science, it is well. In technology, world like that. But in the field of facilities management, information has it, particularly from SAPRI and PIT, that benchmarking in facilities management began in the early 80s when IFMA started to collect information on facilities trends and demographics. Okay, and later it was expanded to look into occupancy issues, cost issues, and so on and so forth. Right now, there's a very wide scope of things that are embedded in facilities benchmarking. And benchmarking is also being enabled, is being assisted by improvements in technology. As we are all aware, we have gone into the fourth industrial revolution. And right now, it's an era that puts so much emphasis on big data, so much emphasis on Internet of Things, and so many of such things. And these advancements in technology are also being fed into benchmarking practices, and not only benchmarking, all aspects of facilities management. So we see that benchmarking, is something in facilities management which has, from that time in the early 80s, has gained a lot of ground. Now we have benchmarking clubs within facilities management, and we have companies that band together to try and see how they can assist one another using this approach to performance. Okay, so if you like, you might, your own organization might, wish to go into a benchmarking club. You can set up an organization, a link with several other organizations so that you help one another to you populate your data repository, and you use that to continuously monitor how all who are within that group are doing, and each one of you can keep on pushing to the industry leader. And because there's continuous competition within that group, definitely you're going to have better services as time goes on. Okay, so now let us look at the characteristics of benchmarking. Characteristics of benchmarking. What are those key things about it that will also help us to appreciate the benefits of benchmarking better? Okay. The fact that it started as a cost reduction method is just one thing to note. You know, it is the most important characteristic to note is that because it is built on continuous improvement, the process itself is not static. It is very dynamic. It started from a particular point of view, but now its application has spread across so many other areas. And you can use benchmarking to assess the following. Let me just give you a list of what you can use it to assess. You can use it to assess quantitative as well as qualitative aspects of facilities management practice. And without necessarily differentiating between these, there's a long list that I would like to give to you here. Number one, you can use it to benchmark costs. For instance, cost of energy consumption. Cost of energy consumption. You know there are standards depending on the kind of facility you have. The LEED and the BOMA standards are there to guide you. But even beyond LEED and BOMA, there are others that you may even want to set up your own standard, which is what some organizations do, so that they're always a step ahead of whatever the global practice is. And that is good practice really, because it's one of the things that makes them to lead in their own category of facilities, providers, and users. Another thing you can benchmark is space utilization in terms of quantity of space available, quantity of space occupied, and things like that. For different purposes, space utilization can be benchmarked. Facilities operating costs, I've mentioned that already, and you know those costs are of different categories. You have cost of acquiring the spaces, cost of energy, cost of water consumed, the cost of running your facilities in terms of maintenance, repairs, and things like that. You can benchmark those different factors of cost. Then you can benchmark even your staffing level. You might find out that you have more staff than you need to perform simple aspects of the various tasks involved in facilities management. And if you are having too many staff doing what one person can do, of course that translates into higher costs than necessary, greater obligations in terms of hospital support, greater obligations in terms of maybe long-term retirement benefits if your company is the type that offers long-term employment and things like that. So you need to benchmark even your staffing levels, the degree of responsibilities that staff are holding and how they are performing with those things. Not just that, you can benchmark your degree of facility risks. To what extent are your own facilities at risk compared to others within their class? You can, benchmark those as well. Again, I mentioned maintenance, but let me mention that again. Maintenance services can be benchmarked. Okay, how efficient, how effective, what is the response to requests for maintenance works? If they are outsourced, how do your vendors carry out their work? And if they are internal, to what extent are you able to minimize cost of maintenance and to ensure a rapid response to needs? Are you doing preventive as against other forms of maintenance? If it is preventive, to what extent are you able to minimize the kind of maintenance needs that arise on the spur of the moment and eat up a lot of costs? So these are some things you can benchmark. You can also benchmark your compliance service level agreements in other organizations, maybe they are able to ensure 100% compliance, 95% compliance, and you are only doing 80% compliance. The question is, what is wrong? Why is there a gap? What are we not doing right? What are we doing to excess that is making this to happen? So you can use that information to find out where you are at fault and you can improve accordingly. I am seeing 2 hands up. Let me mention that I will appreciate if questions are left till the end of the class, because these hands have been up and they will be shut down within another 40 minutes. I'll be another 5 minutes or so. Let me attend to these bits now, and then we can log back on. So please, can we take Mr. Oluseun Bello?
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Yes,
Yeah.
my reason for raising my hand is that you actually gave us permission to record, but the permission is not just by saying it. You have to click on participants and then click on any participants. The participants you actually want to allow to record.
Very good. Mr. Bello?
Yes, ma'am.
You were an app to go to the list of participants
Yes.
and
On the person you actually want to allow, persons or person that you want to allow them to record the meeting. So let me suggest like doing the 5-year, maybe I'll ask them to just raise their hands and then you see them so that you can click and give them the permission.
okay. Alright.
Okay.
I am seeing
Unfortunately,
that you're dealing.
yes, ma'am.
Okay. I'm seeing Fa Jura Luatui.
Matui.
Allowed to report. I have allowed Fa Jura Luatui, and your good self is Bello, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Sorry about this, everybody. Question. Right. Sorry, maybe it's the way my phone is configured here. It has accommodated my permission for Watoyi in Fajira, but not yours, I'm afraid. So maybe she will share with everybody. That's it.
You will share with the class.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. So let me just mute
That's
myself.
all right. Okay. Thank you. I'm seeing Oluwatoyin's hand up. Is there any problem? Okay. Fine. Can we all hear me very well?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Yes.
Yes.
Okay, fine. Yes, so thank you. So I was talking about what we can benchmark, and I mentioned quite a number of things. Another thing we can benchmark, the one I said last was compliance with the service level agreement. And we said if you find that in your own organization there's only 80% compliance, while others are having 95%, 100%. You want to find out why are you lagging behind in terms of percentage of compliance, and you want to address whatever the reason is for that lag. Okay. Another thing is the facility condition. You can benchmark your facility condition. You can benchmark the integrity of your facility, the outlook of your facility. You can benchmark the quality of the ambience of your facility. There's so many things you can do with benchmark, and in all the feedback you get on the benchmarking enables you to improve what you're doing. I had already mentioned staffing. I mentioned compliance with the facility. Another thing you can benchmark is sustainability. To what extent does your facility comply with sustainability requirements? These two can be benchmarked. So you can see there's been a very wide moving away from the initial concentration on cost elements to now include so many other things that you can use to evaluate how you stand vis-a-vis the best, and then improve on what you do with your facility. You can benchmark facility safety. You can benchmark your physical security and safety. You can benchmark the cleaning services that you have engaged. How well are they doing? How satisfied are your customers or your users with the cleaning level? To what extent are you able to achieve good air quality, and so on and so forth? You can benchmark all these issues, and benchmarking then requires that you should have information about other practitioners, other that in the class of the facility you are taking care of. Another thing you can benchmark is your business metrics. Your business metrics in terms of stability, in terms of percentage of your what do you call it now? Financial metrics that are direct goal achievement. You can benchmark the extent to which the proceeds from your facility contributes to the company's financial buoyancy. You can, benchmark so many different things. You can benchmark project delivery performance if you are, in the middle of procuring the facility. You can benchmark, capital allocation, capital replacement. You can benchmark so many things. I would like you to spend time when you are playing with your browser and just, try and improve on that list. I've given you quite a number, and there are so many other things that you can benchmark. But the most common things that people benchmark are costs. And costs are of very many kinds. There are recurrent costs, there are capital costs, there are life cycle costs. So they benchmark these costs, cleaning costs, maintenance costs, security, and all those costs. So you can also benchmark all these things to be able to ensure that you are always on top of things in your facility. Then there are some qualitative issues that you can also benchmark. Those qualitative issues are not any less important than the quantitative issues. These include things like your products and your services. You can benchmark them. You can benchmark customer satisfaction. These are qualitative elements. You can even benchmark, things like training, skills acquisition within your organization. To what extent does the capacity built contribute to improvement in delivery of services? You can evaluate training, the type of training provided, the class of people that benefit from the training, and the different stakes to the success of the organization, and so on. You can, in particular paper, I think that in addition to all this, you can even benchmark retrofitting strategies. Maybe you are improving your facilities in order to take care of their being capable of deploying, of offering improved internet services to all the users. You are trying to improve your facilities and its IT compliance and its capacity to deliver 4IR, disruptive technology. In the process of retrofitting to meet up with that criterion, you can compare yourself with the best in the class. Maybe doing so will help you know what not to do and what to reduce, what to improve on, what to increase, in order that you can minimize costs on the long run, in order that user satisfaction can better, in order that you can deliver more efficient, faster services than others are offering. So there are so many things that benchmarking has to offer. And I would stress that if you're really keen on, pushing up your capacity to deliver good facility management services in your organization, you should look beyond the little we're able to see in this course. In the area of benchmarking. Luckily, very soon, if you are still with us, I don't mean in terms of physically not being there. I mean in terms of, if maybe you're still on your project or something, because those who are going to benefit from this person I'm about to mention might only be able to do so from about June or so. We're expecting a visiting lecturer who is an expert on benchmarking, and I've asked if this visitor would give a few lectures on benchmarking, give a few demonstrations on benchmarking. So you could sign up to be able to join that class. Maybe that person will arrive. Let's put that by God's grace. Nothing will stop the arrival of this visiting lecturer. So benchmarking offers us a lot of benefits. Offers us a very wide group of things that we can do to improve services, to improve activities within our organization. Right. I was talking about the characteristics of benchmarking before I veered off to talk about those various things. The first thing I mentioned under that was that, even though it started as a cost reduction, it has expanded its scope to include so many those things that we mentioned. Right. Now, I also want to mention the other characteristics so that you can have a very round picture of the benefits that benchmarking has to offer you. Another thing it helps to do is that it will help you to review your organization's goals and to ensure that you actually achieve them. Remember, it has always been stressed that one of the key issues in facility management is to ensure that corporate goals are achieved as efficiently as possible. So one of the things that benchmarking will help you to do is just that, to ensure that corporate goals are achieved as best as possible. Okay? It will help you to assess the present state of your facilities, the present state of your management. It will help you to find out what is the best place where you should be. It's like helping you to transit from where you are to where you need to be in order to be top of the pack, in order to be leader in your class. So benchmarking offers you every opportunity to ensure best performance within the limits of your circumstances and constraints, and also in competition with other service providers, with other facility management outfits within your class. So you can see that benchmarking is critical, is important, and you should really build your skills in this area. Okay. So what are the benefits? Number one, you have competitiveness. Remember when I started, I said there are some key performance, yes, but more than that, competitive. So it will help you to achieve competitiveness. It will also help you to achieve the cost savings that will make a difference to your company's financial profile. It will help you to save extensively. There are examples of the different materials that you can see throughout the internet. How costs were reduced by 15% per annum, 10% per annum. You may say, what's 15%? What's it? It can be a lot when you compare with the sum total of finances that go into these costs we're talking about. If you have 15%, for instance, of the 50 million, that's a lot of money. Once you remember that you are coming from a certain place, the costs that your company can essentially carry you. That 50% can be a lot if you're able to reduce it. It may be in the area of energy consumption. If it is in the area of energy consumption, that benefit is no longer to your community, it's given to the whole lot of those who are involved in energy production, energy distribution, and so on. And even your users, it will benefit them so that what they spend on energy will be greatly reduced within their own areas occupied. So I want us to look at all these things and understand them very well. Now that we have seen what benchmarking is, the purpose for which it is used, and also the characteristics and the benefits that we stand to gain from employing it. Let us look at how to do it. How do we do benchmarking? Remember when I was talking a little while ago, I said some organizations have formed benchmarking groups so that it's easy for them to get data and it's easy for them to use their own internal data to compare with the data that they put together. In advanced countries, facilities management organizations have databases against which they can carry out their comparisons. There are databases that you can refer to for cleaning costs. There are databases you can refer to for maintenance costs, and there are databases that cover virtually every area of facility management costs and responsibilities. Okay. Then within the clubs, you can contribute data and use your own. The data contributed to measure best practices within that club is still a way of improving performance, even though on a smaller scale. So these are ways of getting data. Let me mention that benchmarking requires a lot of data, and that is one of the reasons why companies in Nigeria tend to shy away from benchmarking. But we have to start from somewhere, and starting from somewhere, even if it is a small somewhere, it will still make a lot of difference. Now, cost metrics in advanced countries may not necessarily be as applicable because our work environments differ, our challenges differ, and so if you are using data compiled in the UK, they may not be quite as adaptable to your local needs. So the more reason why I want to encourage that we make use of databases that are adapted to our local environment. And maybe within ourselves, you in this class, by the time you are out there practicing, you can form your own benchmarking goals and be able to generate data that enables you to carry out your necessary comparisons from time to time. So what is the procedure and how should we get it done? First and foremost, you have to decide what you are benchmarking. Benchmarking requires a lot of data. You have to decide what are those critical elements that you wish to benchmark, and what is your reason for wanting to focus on them in particular. When you have done that, you have to establish the key performance indicators relevant to that key area you wish to benchmark. Now, like I said earlier on, there are databases existing. You can use them as a guide, whereas the figures that are quoted there may not be really reflective of what is within your local environment. At least the key heads that are listed there might be a guide to help you know what are the key performance indicators you need to be looking out for. Now, I know that Dr. Poliosho has taken you through several lectures in very much detail on this issue of KPIs, and using your own skills so you can browse further and get more information. You can also look at some of those standards I mentioned earlier that enable you to know what are the key metrics that should guide you when you are trying to benchmark. Okay, so establish the key performance indicators relevant to the key areas that you wish to benchmark. Once you have identified those key performance indicators, the next thing to do is to, you know, also gather your own internal data. Remember, you want to compare your own internal parameters with those of the comparables. So get your own internal data. Just make sure that your facilities are running. Yes, let your facilities be running. Let them be running optimally. But most importantly, also the gathering of your facilities. What do I call them now? Characteristics, the size of your space, the number of outlets of energy consumption. All those key things must be well documented so that you can use them to compare with the best practices data that you have at your disposal. So as you are getting the comparables from the best practices, from the best facilities, you're also getting your own internal data. Very crucial that you should have your own internal data and that you try and get them within the same degree of parameters that are needful for evaluating those, under those KPIs that we mentioned earlier. Okay? Now, some people do their analysis on annual basis, so that by the time they are performing, they're carrying out the work of preparing their budget for the next year, they can feed the information into that budget making process and be able to improve their work based on the data available and the comparisons they have done. Remember we said benchmarking helps you identify the gaps, helps you to identify the deficit areas, the areas where you are not measuring up to standard, so that you can improve. Okay, so those things you identify help you to know where to focus, where to push resources into, what to reduce, what to increase, so that your budget for next performance year, your next operational year, can be more streamlined than before. Okay, so you have we've mentioned so far, you need to identify your key performance indicators, and then the need for you to have both your own internal data collected and the comparables also collected, the comparables from the best practices. Okay. Then also you must have started by identifying which are those companies that are top of the range, which are the companies that you want to benchmark with. I have been stressing something all along. I've been talking about best practices. Best practices. How do you really identify these best practices? In a lot of companies, if you are really deeply involved in what you do, there's no way you don't know that, oh, so and so companies, they are doing very well, they are like this, they are like that. If I mention this particular, you say, oh, that's the company, they are like this, they are like that. So, in a way, we have some tacit knowledge of those that are within the bracket of best practitioners in our areas. But then, if in case you don't know, this is one of the things that IFMA would offer services in. IFMA as a body, IFMA Nigeria would, from time to time compile comparative evaluations of the various practitioners, the various companies, to identify those ones that are doing very well, so that we can use this to identify what are the specific companies that we need to evaluate ourselves against. I know some years back, IFMA used to award special award for companies and for higher institutions and for some people in the hospitality industry whose facilities are best. So they classify them using certain criteria, so best in class and so on and so forth. And those things can help you as a guide to identify those companies that are best that you can benchmark. Now, the readiness of these best practitioners to offer detailed data of their operations can be a challenge in the sense that everybody tries to maintain their competitive edge by protecting their so-called confidential information. Again, that's another area where man can help by, from time to time compiling and reviewing data on the key parameters that are relevant to what needs to be done. Okay, let's move on. And after we have collected all the data and we have identified the companies that are best in class, the practices that are best in the class that we wish to benchmark against, the next thing to do is to measure the performance of the benchmark companies or organizations. Measure your own performance as well so that you can compare. And in measuring their performance against you, definitely you are going to be able to see where the gaps lie. Maybe they're able to achieve so much degree of the cost efficiency. Then you look at yourself and you are way far from that. At least knowing what they do or how they arrive at their own level can help you to see what you need to do in order to achieve something here or even better than what they do. So you measure their performance against your performance, you compare, and then you take note of where your own shortfalls lie so that you can begin to push yourself to improve. Okay? Then once you have done that, you don't stop there. Remember when we started, we said the continuous process. It's something you have to do again and again because nothing is static in the business world. Costs are not static to start with. Demands of customers or occupants or users are not static. Technological improvements are not static. So you have to keep monitoring, you have to keep checking. On annual basis, that is the one you choose, or maybe biannual basis, maybe quarterly basis. You can check and recheck and recheck. What does that do to you? First, you keep on monitoring how you are doing, whether you are still in that edge, whether you are sliding back. You can use it to check. And secondly, you can see what the other companies are doing to improve their own work and services and products so that you too can measure and do the best you can do. Remember we said benchmarking is a tool that enables you to improve and to improve continuously. There's nothing as continuous improvement. You need it. Your company needs it. Your facilities need it. Your users need it. So to be able to help you offer the best across the board, this process has to be done over and over and over. If you like, if your company is large enough for that, you can even have a performance evaluation unit, or you can tie your research and development unit with that responsibility, so that all these things we've been talking about, performance evaluation, will be theirs to carry out every now and again. Okay? So when you are monitoring, what are you doing essentially? I've mentioned already. You are identifying where you are feeling the gaps in your performance. You are identifying the areas where you need to improve. Secondly, you are identifying opportunities because what they are doing that you are not doing become things that you can now strategize to begin to do in order to get the level of performance you need. Another thing is it helps you to ensure that you implement the best practice that you have seen in others. It helps you to achieve that level of best practice as well. Is it good to compete? Is it good to ensure that we are able to offer best practice like others are doing? Definitely yes, apart from the internal benefits to your company and to you as a facility manager. It is very good because it will keep the others on their toes as well. So it's like we are all competing to keep on improving. And at the end of the day, who will benefit from that continuous competition, continuous effort to achieve best practice and best everything. The users benefit. The corporate organizations that own the facilities benefit. The public at large, especially when it comes to sustainability issues, energy consumption issues, what do you call it now, carbon emission output, and things like that. Everybody benefits. So we should see it as a good thing. It's challenging, yes. It can also have its own costs in terms that getting analyzing the data. They sometimes require you to even employ special personnel, practice, whatever. But whatever you need to do, it is justified in the sense that you will not slide back at the end of the So in your policy making, in your strategic decision, benchmarking can be a very, very critical tool to ensuring that you achieve the level of performance that will help you to maintain a competitive edge. Very important that you maintain a competitive edge. Another benefit, which I have mentioned already, but which appears unique, is innovation. It helps to ensure that you achieve, you identify areas where innovation is needed and you are able to put them to produce your work. I'm going to refer you to some materials. They are not very deep academic research materials. They are things that are useful to you, to enable you to have a better view of value. Remember I said you should build your skill in this area. The depth of exposure that MSM online allows you is not cheap enough to help you get all that you need. So I will encourage you to read more on this material, on the benchmarking, and to use the information to build your understanding and your progress. Okay. I want to say there are papers written by my good self, Dr. Polushu, and Yewande Adewu. You can use Yewande Adewu and Polushu to start out those papers and read them, so that you have an insight to benchmarking practice in Nigeria. Okay. Yewande Adewu worked on benchmarking in her PhD, benchmarking in Nigeria. She looked at it with a very pragmatic perspective. So it will be worth your while to look at papers that have been published from that research area. Another one I would recommend to you is the importance of benchmarking in facilities management. The importance of benchmarking in facilities management by Frost and Sullivan. This is on the internet. You can easily download it. It's something you can read in a matter of 10 minutes, just to help you have a better grasp of all that we have been talking about. So I need to give you a little time to ask questions if you have any. So if there are any questions that you have, please bring them up now so that we can quickly address them here to find out. I would also like to tell the class that maybe we can migrate to a different platform. Instead of using Zoom, we might want to use Google Meet. I've been using that with my MSc class, and we are not cut off at any time, and it's very beneficial. It's also, you get less interference. It has been smoother, so and maybe that's what we shall use normally. So if you have any questions, please feel free to ask them now. You can raise up your hand, you can chat, you can put it in the chat box, and you can address it. If you need to speak, please unmute yourself and go ahead. Somebody's asking Frost and Sullivan, Sullivan, Sullivan. Okay, that is the name of those I wrote the paper. I just referred you to the paper. I said you can finish reading a very short one. Frost and Sullivan is a company. The other author is called Singh. It's from Pakistan. Sihh. Any other question? Checking the chat box. Please drop your questions there if you have any. Right, no questions. Can I ask you if you have any questions based on previous tools that we have been discussing, so that we can set up another class to address those tools specifically? Mr. Hassan Jamil, I see you are unmuted. Did you want to ask a question?
No, ma'am.
Okay, thank you very much. All right then. So we've been talking benchmarking today, and we have talked about what we need to do in order that we can benefit maximally from stage. I said that the time available is not enough to really address all that for benchmarking, but there are copious materials available online that can make reference that will help you to get benefits of more exposure. And I've advised that to build your skills application at your place of work, you need to apply yourself to really understand the process very and its application very, very. So I'm going to stop there today. But please, next class, not use, I would prefer we use, okay. I see a hand up to your question. That's Mr. Sheya Deshino.
Good afternoon. How do you find out? Is there how do we know benchmarks of other countries?
Okay.
Like, list all then there a website you can visit and see them.
Okay. Thank you very much. Is there any other question? Okay. How do we get to know information about other countries? While I was more active to releasing information here in Nigeria, people tend to be very, very careful when it comes to releasing information about how they run internally, unless they are compelled to share that data. They don't want you to even come here and go. I don't know how many of my students who have gone on from the MFM class trying to research into one thing or the other information is concerned. So yes, indeed, it's a valid concern. How do we get the information? How do we get the details that we need to benchmark against? Remember, I of people do is to form a benchmarking so that within the class of those that they at least have their own level of comparative information on what is best and what, and they have an agreement to share information. Okay. Now there are benchmarking websites, international ones, where you can get some parameters, okay, where you can get information on certain elements, and access to those websites, they make it easy for you to get at least some insight into what you need. But like